Show me.
Don't touch your ear like that. You look like an idiot.
You have no idea who you partnered with.
I've been dreaming about this stuff since I was a kid. My brother Sam left one final clue.
All right, welcome everybody to episode 4 now of the Monday Morning Directing Podcast. It's been a minute.
It has.
Yeah. As always, I'm Hobo, and this is Rick. How you doing, Rick?
I'm yeah.
For those of you listening, before we started recording, about 30 seconds ago, Rick kind of sat and he's like, wait a minute, I need to think about how I'm going to respond for when you ask me how I'm doing. And that's what you came up with.
I still had not figured it out. Yeah. I still have not figured it out. I'll figure it out by episode 50.
Okay, you're giving yourself quite a bit of leeway, huh?
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, we're back.
This is kind of episode 4.5. We recorded earlier an episode on the Gray Man, but that plot is so generic that we would just scrap the entire film and start from scratch. So
we ended up doing that on a couple movies, I think, where we started the process on an episode, we were good to go, and then we started to actually like talk about it, and we're like, oh, this has like not a lot of potential.
Yeah. But
yeah. But this time we have a movie that actually I was pleasantly surprised with and might have had a little bit of potential. The Uncharted movie from 2020. 2 or 21?
I think it was last year.
Yeah, 2022. I'm looking on Wikipedia right
now.
It's
this year?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
It was meant to have been released last year, but it didn't actually come out until, this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, me personally, I've never played a single Uncharted game. I know you played like the first two, right? Or the first one?
I played the first two and I'm halfway through the fourth one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess keep that in your mind. Just that like I have no experience with the games. I don't know any of the characters. I have a very vague understanding of who Nathan Drake is and what he's supposed to look like, and I have a very vague understanding of like the genre of the game, and I know that it's for a lot of people was a very nostalgic game for the PlayStation. I just never played it, and I've never had any interest in it. But I think that lends itself to having an interesting perspective on it, having the association with the original IP versus you being someone who has no idea what the movie's about and you just go into it blind.
Yeah, fans have been we've been asking for this one for quite a while, actually. A few years ago, Nathan Fillion, he starred in like a 20-minute short film that they did, a kind of like a fan project for like a mini like Uncharted thing, right?
Okay.
And it was really, really good. Like Nathan Fillion is one of the perfect castings for Nathan Drake. I think he is slightly a bit too old now, but I'm talking like maybe 10 years ago.
Sure.
100% could see him as Nathan Drake. But instead we got Tom Holland, which ultimately is fine, but I was quite confused because at the beginning of this movie, it starts off when he's like 12 years old or something, right, with his brother.
Yep.
And they're gonna steal like Magellan's map. And then after that, his brother gets caught. He leaves. Then it does like a 15 years later thing. So I guess he's supposed to be like 27.
Somewhere.
He had to be over 10, like when he's in a kid. Like there's no way he's under 10 in that.
Sure.
Yeah. Which I was like, I could have bought him as Nathan Drake if he's like 20, I guess. Maybe like
Yeah, like really
22.
young.
Yeah, really young. But he seems to be kind of like much more of an adult, which I don't like because I don't think.
Well, I mean, he's at least 21. I mean, he's working in a bar, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
you know.
he's at least 21, but I'm thinking he's in his later 20s because of the math there, but
Hmm.
you never know.
Yeah, I mean, before we get too deep into it, I just want to say that I was actually going into this movie. I think we talked about this a little bit before that um most of the trailers that you saw online or on TV for this movie was like, "Hey, give it a chance. It's not going to be that bad." Right?
Yeah.
Like
It was a very sad marketing.
it was pretty because I mean, going into it, honestly, I looked at it and I'm like, this is going to be garbage. You know what I mean? I thought it was going to be really bad, and I was actually pleasantly surprised that it's not that awful. I mean, it's not great, right? But it's fine. You know what I mean? I was able to sit through it for however the hour and a half that it is, and I wasn't it wasn't an unpleasant experience. Like, it was fine.
Yeah, it it was interesting for me, right? Because I have the perspective of playing the games, and boy oh boy, did our favorite man who would have stopped 9/11, Mark Wahlberg. Um, he was he was quite a standout in a very negative sense.
Yeah, and again, like, because that was the thing that I noticed going into it was Tom Holland doesn't look like the video game Nathan Drake. Um, and I was like, well, why don't you just get Mark Wahlberg to play Nathan Drake, right?
He was, yeah. I heard at one
Mm.
point he was
Yeah,
tied.
that was the yeah.
Oh, I just stole
Um,
your thunder completely.
yeah, but I don't know, that's fine. Um, but but yeah, but it's like Mark Wahlberg ended up actually being a lot weaker than Tom Holland in terms of performance. And I think a lot of that is because I think this movie was pretty important for Tom Holland's career to kind of break out of the just being Spider-Man type thing, you know what I mean? Um
Yeah.
to like show that he can do more, and that, to prevent himself from being typecast into that sort of role. Um and I thought he did fine. Like, he did well enough.
Yeah, he did do surprisingly solid.
Yeah. Um but that said, I think that he doesn't have the most to work with. Um but we can get into that later. Um
Yeah.
yeah, so like you were saying, the movie starts out uh pretty pretty simple. Like, it's a it's just an adventure movie in the vein of like an Indiana Jones type buried treasure,
Yep.
puzzles and intrigue and that sort of thing. Um and which I believe is, the what the games were inspired on as well. Like, that's what it was trying to evoke anyway. Um but in this case, it sort of comes across as um not necessarily like a cheap imitation, but it is certainly like, it does kind of make you wish that you were watching like a better adventure movie. You know what I mean?
Honestly, like I watched like half of it like a couple days or like a week ago, and I stopped. I'm like, let me just play the game. Like this is so much better. Like I just started playing Uncharted 4 like a week ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is infinitely better in like every way. Just
Yeah. Yeah. But like, basic plot synopsis, Nathan Drake, Tom Holland, um he and his brother um are orphans, and they're like really obsessed with like archaeology and treasure hunting and that sort of thing. um and Nathan's older brother goes missing, um and then he's approached by um Mark Wahlberg's character Sully to come and find the treasure that Nathan's older brother was looking for before he went missing. um and from there they go, and they're going, and they're trying to find the treasure, but more importantly, Nathan's trying to look for his brother, right? The basis of the movie's pretty straightforward, and it does well enough at that, right? Like there's a lot of um pretty decent scenes where there's a lot of uh action and chase scenes and like these tense puzzle solving stuff where they're trying to disarm traps and that sort of thing. All of like the typical things that you would expect from this type of movie. Um and so like pretty immediately it gets pretty deep into uh like essentially the first like major scene that isn't like an introduction in the movie is essentially like a heist for an auction where they're trying to get like these the crucifix that is later figured out to be a key for something for the treasure, right? um and in that immediate scene you sort of see the first like seeing of like weird stuff going on, because essentially um Drake is the distraction, right? And then Sully goes in, he steals the thing, but then he doesn't go back for Drake, and he basically leaves him to his own fate. um
Yeah, that
um
that also was very weird for me to
which
see. Yeah.
I don't know how much this is uh how much this aligns with Sully's character in the games. Um, but at that point, I was basically like, "Oh, okay, this dude's a scumbag." You know what I mean? Like almost immediately, it's kind of like the
Yeah, it's from the games it is completely not like that. Sully
okay,
is well, so when the first game starts, they know each other from the get-go, right?
okay,
They've known each other for years.
right,
But I've played the very beginning of the third game, and the third game opens up with how they meet,
right,
right? And they are on the opposition. Like Sully's working for someone else, and then Nate stole a thing from the
yep,
opposition, and
right,
it's very quick. But Sully realizes, hey, I'm not going to kill a kid. Like, and he has like so much more morals,
right.
and him they end up teaming up, and that's kind of like the origin. It's very fast. There's not that much butting heads,
Hmm.
unlike this movie where they're doing like the buddy cop thing, right?
Yeah. The thing that actually like I immediately went to for this was the relationship between Jack Sparrow and Will Turner in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is pretty much exactly that relationship.
You know what I mean? It's like the kind of naive, fresh-faced, but also still like a very honorable character has to learn from this mentor figure who's like actually like not a good person and is like like just a complete rat. You know what I mean? But in that sort of world, right? In the Pirates of the Caribbean being pirates, in this being like treasure hunting, you kind of got to be a little bit deceptive if you want to survive in that environment, right? um and so that's sort of the lesson that those characters take away. um the they go through and they uh are immediately put in opposition to um I cannot remember the name of the character, um
Oh, played
but
by
Antonio Banderas.
I was about to say
Um,
Puss in Boots, but yeah,
yeah, yeah. Which is,
he does a
uh,
fine enough job as playing like very generic bad guy.
yeah, he plays this sort of something Moncada. He's part of the quote unquote Moncada family, which is like this very affluent Spanish family that um they believe because they sent Magellan, which is the treasure that they're after. They sent Magellan out to get this treasure, and they believe that the treasure's theirs because they funded Magellan's journey, right? And so it should be theirs. Um, and Antonio Banderas's character is this ruthless corpo basically who's willing to do anything to get his money, right? And he thinks very highly of himself and of his family's legacy and pride and all of that stuff, right? Um, and in addition, there's Braddock, who is I believe supposed to be uh like an ex of Sully. I believe that
Something of the sort. I
some
as
or like a former partner, or like worked with him in some way, right? And maybe there was a little bit of romantic dalliances, but
yeah.
something like that. Like
I I
like Sully knows her.
I think that is a movie original character. I don't remember a Braddock in the video games,
Mm,
honestly.
right.
But yeah, very femme fatale. Like
Yes. Um yeah. Notably uses a Krambit the majority of the movie. Um
yeah,
which again just kind of made me think of the raid, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah.
Um
That's a
and
better movie than this one.
yeah. Um but but the two of them are introduced, right? And it's like, okay, so those are two villains, those are two heroes, and then in between they also introduce Chloe, who's like this other person who is a treasure hunter who Sully knows but can't really trust, right? Um
Yeah.
and like immediately she tries to betray them. And then it's like, oh, okay. It's like, because it's like, the cutthroat, ruthless world of the treasure hunters, and they're all trying to they're all that matters to them is that they're the one that gets the treasure, right? And they're
Yeah.
willing to work with other people so long as it furthers themselves. And it's like this very, Machiavellian type deal. And so she immediately tries to betray them. And it's only because of Drake's sort of like being an outsider in this world that he's like, hey, we need to like learn to trust each other if we want to progress at all, right? We need to we are far disadvantaged due to our lack of resources compared to Moncada, right? So we gotta stick together. We gotta actually not be scumbags, right? And then they kind of like agree, um only for uh them to get betrayed again by Chloe. Like almost as soon as they have the map to the treasure, they get betrayed, and it turns out she was working for Moncada the whole time. It's like, oh, okay, so she's actually so she's not to be trusted, right?
It's done like very stupidly in this movie. So Chloe Fraser is a character introduced in the second game.
Okay,
Also kind of has that like double agent role,
right,
but is done infinitely better because really think it has to do with like the game's setting up like Nate and Sully as like their own characters in the first one and then adding in Chloe. I really do think
right.
that like Chloe should not have been in this one.
Mm.
Like I do feel like there was like one too many characters.
Yeah, no, I actually think that that's a really good idea, and just focused on the relationship and the tension between Nate and Sully, to see if, like, can I really trust
Yeah.
this guy? We got to learn to work together, right? And almost like you were saying, like focusing on that buddy cop type dynamic, where it's like we come from two different worlds, but we got to work together, and by the end of the movie, we're actually really good friends, even though we're polar opposites. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that like as you say, that would have been a far better approach to this movie. And then and then potentially add Chloe later on as an extra character. Um, but like, Chloe betrays them, and it's like, oh, I think that because Braddock is immediately kind of displaced as being Moncada's like top henchman, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, okay, so Chloe's the big bad guy, and Braddock is gonna be like the bad guy who's actually good, right? Um, but then Braddock just kills Moncada like immediately, and you're like, okay, well, why even have Moncada there? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's I'm not saying like double crossing like villains like arguing amongst themselves doesn't happen in the games as well, but here it felt kind of pointless. Like
the
was
entire movie is just filled with these crisscrossing alliances that at the end of the day, like, don't really add all that much. That's the entire point of me going through like this timeline of like who's on whose side at what point, because it's confusing.
Yep.
Like it's just like, whoa, like what, like it was, don't get me wrong, it surprised the hell out of me when she just slits his throat and you're like, whoa, okay, that's kind of crazy. But it felt like a twist for its own sake, you know what I mean, like just for the surprise factor of like, whoa, that was unexpected. But it didn't really contribute anything in the story as a whole, you know what I mean. um it was it was just that little, that brief bit of shock value, and then you're back to the story and it's like nothing has really changed. It's just now like Antonio Banderas is no longer in the movie, which was, I like Antonio Banderas, you know what I mean, it's like, why is he gone, like, you know what I mean. Yeah, like, so it's just like, I don't know, it's like, why. And then later on, Sully kind of like leaves Drake and Chloe after Moncada dies, goes back, helps the good guys. And then it's the three good guys again against Braddock. But then like Sully drops the bomb that like he let Nate's brother die for the treasure, right? And that, he's like, I double crossed your brother, and Drake is obviously, pissed
Yeah,
because he's like,
immediately something Sully would not do from the games whatsoever. He's not
hmm,
that type of person at all to like
well,
let someone die on their own team, you know?
yeah, I mean, and it's like, um, he does that, and then it's like Drake and Chloe, and then Drake betrays Chloe for basically no reason, um, and then gets back with Sully, even though Sully, like, he lied to you. He's been lying to you this whole time. He let your brother die, like all this stuff, and it's like, why did he team up with Sully in the end instead of teaming up with Chloe? You know what I mean? If it had been that like he double crosses Chloe, right, and then at the end he also double crosses Sully because he learned that he has to be a scumbag in order to like double cross the scumbags that would otherwise double cross him,
Yeah,
that'd be one thing.
it that's the thing. Like Nathan Drake is not like a pure soul in the games, right? Like he
Hmm.
does scummy shit, but he's got his like friends, and his friends, he counts on them, they count on him. He's not
Well,
going to jeopardize them.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but like my understanding is that in the games he's more of like a rakish rogue type, kind of like, kind of like the Indiana Jones stuff where it's like Indiana Jones, there's the one scene in the Lost Ark where, there's the guy, he's doing the sword, he's like, he's flicking around the sword, and then Indiana Jones just pulls out a gun and shoots him, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
he's not dumb, you know what I mean? Like he's a clever trickster, even, you know what I mean? But he's not dishonorable, you know what I mean? It's just that he's like, oh, you're gonna whip around a sword, okay, right? And it's like, and then he does what he's got to do. Um, versus like the sort of, weird thing where it's like, man, there's really like not a whole lot of reason for me to be attached to these guys because they're all kind of like not nice to each other, you know what I mean? um but I mean, so me personally, that's the number one thing that I would change, is like, stop it with all of everybody trying to double cross everybody, right?
Yep.
Make it like, there's two sides, right? Maybe there's like, again, like I kind of like the idea of, it's Sully and Drake, right? And then when Chloe double crosses them, Chloe's working for Moncada, and then at some point later on, Braddock realizes that Moncada's like gonna double cross her, so she goes and she like kind of helps Sully and Drake while still, not overtly helping them, you know what I mean? Kind of being like the villain who like has a change of heart and realizes like that the cause that they're fighting for isn't just, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. Um, and then, maybe setting up like Chloe. I know that in the games, it's not Chloe, but like if it were hypothetically Chloe, have Chloe be set up as like the villain in the next movie. They kill Moncada when they get the treasure and like all the other stuff, right? make it a lot more simple. You know what I mean? Because I think it also, I think in doing so, you also fix the issue of like there's not a super clear relationship between Sully and Drake. Like even at the end of the movie, it's not until the very last second that
That was a
they show that
stupid
like
bit. Yeah, I hated that. That was still dumb.
you know what I mean? Like it's only in the very last second that like you show that they kind of trust each other. And it's like, and that's it. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. And so I think that like you can have the moment where Sully's like, yeah, I let your brother die, right? But don't have Sully like double cross Drake all the time. You know what I mean?
Introduce Chloe in the second movie after we've established Sullivan and Nate's relationship, and then she's kind of like this wild card that
Yep.
comes into play in the middle
Yep.
of all this stuff, right?
Yep.
That's perfect. But when you're doing it in the middle of like an origin movie, it's like it's too chaotic. Like
Yep. Yeah, there's just so much twisting and turning that it's like, you know, there comes a point where you're like, okay, like at this point, you're not sure if like anybody's really the good guy anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's um it would be one thing again if like everyone's double crossing each other, and then Drake turns out to be the cleverest of them all, pits them all against each other, and then comes out on top, and then it's like, and he rides off into the sunset, right? That would be one thing. And I don't think that would necessarily be that bad of a movie if it was done well. You know what I mean? Um, because you know that is kind of like the spaghetti western type stuff. You know what I mean? Like even with kind of like the good and the bad and the ugly. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like that sort of thing where it's like, you know, the hero is not the best person, and yeah, he double crosses everyone by the end, but he's not a bad person, but he is crafty and he's a trickster. You know what I mean? That's the sort of archetype. Um, and so I think that definitely could have been like a really good path that they could have gone down. But I think you're probably right that that doesn't really fit the character of Nathan Drake from the games. Go with the Sully and Drake. This is their buddy cop movie. You know what I mean? They don't know if they can trust each other, you know, all the stuff.
their relationship is it's kind of it's kind of just simple, honestly, in the games, right?
Mhm.
That's why you don't get their origin till later, and you don't even find out that he has a brother till the fourth game.
Mm,
Like again, it's like take these two characters, they've known each other. That's why like the whole Uncharted origin idea as a movie, I'm like, did we really need this? Like, because people will get it that these two characters know each other. We don't need to see like
right,
the origin of everything. Maybe you can hint at it later.
right. Well, but at the same time, right? You know, we talk about how Tom Holland kind of needs to. He's a super baby face, right? So he needs to kind of play the young Nathan Drake, in order for it to be like convincing. You know what I mean? That he's that character. So in that respect, I actually don't think that having an origin movie is necessarily the wrong play if you're gonna have Tom Holland, right? Obviously, if you cast someone else, you know, if Mark Wahlberg is Nathan Drake, then go ahead, you know, have it start in the kind of like pre-established relationship that you don't really see. Um, but you know, I mean, honestly, I think that Tom Holland is actually a pretty good Nathan Drake, all things considered. Um, could there be better? For sure. You know what I mean? Like there's probably some casting choices that could have been better, but none that have the same marquee value as Tom Holland. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, again, in this hypothetical where we're just like a writer slash director, you know, this is the tools we're working with. We've got Tom Holland. You know what I mean? I think that um yeah, I think you just cut Chloe as a character. Maybe even keep Braddock alive until the very end, and then it's only at the very end when she like kills Moncada, right? And then she's like, "Okay, I'm getting out of here. I've got like some of the treasure. You guys have got some of the treasure. The rest is like lost at sea." And then they part ways, and then maybe she comes back in a sequel as a villain, right? Aside from that, what other ideas do you have? What else would you change about it?
I mean, it seems right that they're like picking like a lot of scenarios from the games, which I understand doing that, right?
Right.
It's like you're taking like all the best parts and shoving it into like one movie,
Hmm.
which it kind of becomes too much. Like the whole plane sequence. I thought the plane sequence was fine, but then they also got to like steal the cross, and it's all taken like one almost one to one directly from the games. And that kind of concerns me because like when they're out of like taking these things, like can they actually hold their own on writing like new material?
Right. Well, was the okay, really quickly, I just want to say that I personally was not a really big fan of the plane scene. Um, I found it just like super disorienting and like just uh I was not a super huge fan of the just the I mean, because obviously it's like gonna be filled with CG, but the way that the kind of the camera perspective is, you're falling with him and you're spinning, and it's like I don't know. For me, it was a little bit much.
Still better than the Gray Man one.
Yes. Not to bring up something that I guess we technically haven't brought up on the podcast, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I mean, like I think otherwise, there were like a lot of really cool scenes. I don't know how much of them are from the games. Like, actually, I was pretty pleasantly surprised with how the two pirate ships being flown by the helicopter scene was actually better than I expected. Um,
Yeah, like a helicopter can hold fucking like what, 100 tons.
yeah, I
I
don't. Yeah,
was like, it's whatever, but also like, I guess,
it's
yeah, sure.
cartoonish. Yeah,
It's
it's
cartoonish.
turn off your. I mean, honestly, this movie is like popcorn entertainment. You know what I mean? It's not meant to be in any way like meaningful, right? It's just to turn off your brain, watch this adventure movie. Um, but the I don't know if that scene is from the games.
I don't think so. I don't
Um,
remember it being.
yeah, I mean, like I don't know, but I thought that scene was kind of fun. I also thought that a lot of the scenes where they're trying to where they had to split off into two teams, and it was Sully above ground and it was Chloe and Nate below ground, and they have to coordinate their stuff. Obviously that seems very video gamey, you know what I mean? In like a
Yeah.
two-player game where you split off and you've got to complete one half of the puzzle so that your partner can advance and that sort of thing. Um, but it was cool, and there was like good action, and there was like a lot of cool scenes. And so I think that there's um enough potential that they could maybe make one or two more decent ones. But yeah, I think that you're correct that like they if they run through the source material too quickly, what are they going to do? That's always a concern. And then in addition, um
Are
this
they are they all gonna be with him being like a young man? Like, are they ever gonna just do like a movie that's like a 15-year time jump and like they're now.
probably not. I don't
I,
I don't think so.
I would have hoped for something like that.
I don't think so, because you've already kind of established that Tom Holland is Nathan Drake. You know what I mean?
You could
So to
always
have him
unestablish that.
I'll not if you want to make money, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think so. I don't think that would be a good idea. You just roll with it. You know what I mean? You have it now. You do what you can. But I think that an issue that I had, which was less with the movie itself and more with the advertising, was that all of the really cool big action sets I knew were going to happen before I even saw the movie because of the way that the trailers were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the scenes where he swings from the chandelier during the art heist, the pirate ships fighting, and then the scene where he gets hit by the car and falls out of the plane. All of that is all in the trailer. You see all the best parts.
Yep.
And so it's like, and on one hand, at this point we're kind of getting into more like the I guess more the business side of it, but on one hand I understand it because it's like it's not a movie that most people would really give a chance, so you gotta show them the glitz and glam to get them in the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
I get it. This is also the first of PlayStation Studios,
yep,
right? If I saw that logo for the first time, I was like,
yep.
this is weird. More notably, they're doing Last of Us, which is going to come out sometime
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
future,
yeah, yeah.
which also could be underwhelming. We'll see.
Yeah,
But
that's another game that I haven't played that I just, I know people love The Last of Us, but I've just never had interest.
yeah,
Um
I can get that.
and so I think that that's going to be another movie where I'm going to go in completely with only a very basic idea of what it's about. Um and hopefully that helps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that does often help with a lot of these sort of movies that are especially based off of video games, also based off of books and stuff, but especially based off of movies or based off of video games. Um, is if you're really connected to the source material, and you go into the movie thinking that it's going to be like the source material, most of the time you're going to be really disappointed, and it's you're going to have a bad time. But
Yeah, I'm fine with like reimaginings, all that stuff if it's like good, right? Like
right, of
take
course,
it in like whatever direction you want to take it. Just like have it not be boring
sure,
or too complicated or have like five backstabbings. Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, also Chloe is only really a major character for the second game. After that, she's very much like shows up for a couple missions and then leaves type character, you know what I'm
mm,
saying?
yep.
So that's the thing. I'm like, okay, if you have Chloe in this one, you can like not have her in the next one, and you can bring in Elena, who is the main actual love interest for Nathan Drake.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, she's like she's a reporter, and then she gets tangled up in the middle of it, right?
I see. Right, right,
So
right.
yeah, yeah, and they also at the very end of the movie they tease that Nate's brother Sam is alive and he's just in this prison cell, right?
Yeah, which I'm not entirely sure what the point of it
Right.
is. I mean, well, don't get me wrong. I understand that the point is that they're gonna show him in a later movie. It's like, oh my God, you're alive, right? But it's also like, why are you teasing that? You know what I mean?
We'll see how they pull off the sequel, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not all hope is not lost because I thought that it was fine, it was good enough, and I think it also did pretty well commercially. Like I think it's in the top 10 video game movies like of all time.
To be
um
fair, that category is not that great. I don't
well, you
what
say
it
that, but then I know the Warcraft movie, for example, did really well
Warcraft
in
is the
China.
highest rated. I just pulled that up at 439 worldwide.
Yeah, well, because I know it didn't do so well in the US, but it did phenomenally in China. Like the Chinese love MMOs, and they love Warhammer, or not Warhammer, Warcraft. Um,
Yes, we love Warhammer.
we love Warhammer, yes. Any other thoughts? Because honestly, I think that the solution to this movie is actually pretty simple. And I think that it would go a long way towards um just simplifying it and making it like you know a more set in stone, like this is the first movie, there's going to be sequels, as opposed to honestly I think a lot of it too was that they weren't sure that they were going to be able to get funding for a sequel. You know what I mean? um and so they really needed to go all out with this one to ensure that they could get more.
I guess 400 million worldwide was enough
Yeah,
on a budget of 120 million.
yeah. And it did very well commercially. I didn't see it in theaters. I waited until it came out on I think it was like Prime or something for free. Um but yeah, anything else to add? Any other additions, any other things you would change?
Yeah, another thing I just want to mention about Nate and Sully's relationship is like at the beginning it's like Sully knows he doesn't have the intellect to find like various treasures. That's why
Mm,
he wants to work with Nate,
Mm,
But like once you get past that point, there's like no betrayal. Like,
mm,
but here it's like you can find this, and then I'm probably gonna like backstab you and just take all of it. At the end of the movie, like I don't buy these two really as like the friends. Like
yep.
they have zero chemistry also.
Yes, I was about to say the exact same thing. Um, it's very I don't know. You don't even pick up on it is neither like the tension of like these guys are best friends, nor is it the tension of like I don't trust you. You know what I mean? There's nothing really there. You know what I mean? It's very it's very weird because they on paper you would think that their characters' motivations would be, one way, and but then they ended up doing things that are counterintuitive to that. Like, just as the example being like, Sully's like, I let your brother die, I betrayed you, all this stuff, and then immediately on the pirate ship, Nate sees him again and he's like, "What's up, Sully?" You know what I mean? And that was it. You know what I mean? And there wasn't really like this like, "Oh, you're my enemy." You know what I mean? Um, like there was no conflict between them. It was just kind of immediately like, I mean, Nate showed Sully that like the fake spices on top were fake and that there was actually gold underneath. You know what I mean? Why would he do that?
That is stuff you would show if he was like your partner, not like
Yeah.
this guy that is messed with your like
Yes.
psychology. Like, no, your brother accidentally left him to die,
Yeah. And
and I never
it's
told you. Yeah.
and it's like, I think that that plays a lot into like the changes that we would make, you know what I mean, where it's like there's things that just they don't mesh well, you know what I mean, like it doesn't add up. uh and I think that a lot of the problems sort of stem from that sort of unclear direction of like how they want to write the characters, like how they want to write Sully, how they want to write Nate, Chloe, etc. um I think as soon as you get like a more concrete like characterization of these people, um and then begin writing off of that, it becomes a lot easier. um but it's a pretty mediocre movie.
If anything, you should take away from those movies that you should just kind of play the games. The This was a really good
I don't think
commercial.
I will.
This entire movie was a really good commercial on why you should just play the games.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't think I will.
I
For,
don't think
for
you
me
have a
personally,
system that could play any of these games.
I do. I own a PlayStation 4.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But I mean, I don't know, like me personally, like this movie didn't make me like I mean, I'm sure for someone who has already played Uncharted is like, oh yeah, I want to go back and replay Uncharted. For me, having very little experience with the Uncharted IP, it didn't introduce me to anything really. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's fine. And I've basically up until uh I think it was you who suggested it for the podcast. Up until you suggested it, I had not thought of that movie since I had seen it. You know what I mean? It's not even that great of an introduction to the franchise in my opinion. It's not, it didn't make me feel like I was missing out on something.
So obviously, like the Uncharted game is based off movies like Indiana Jones and The Mummy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I think this movie should have turned back to those movies as inspiration rather than taking inspiration from the game itself.
In what respect?
If they wanted to go in a new direction, it kind of boxes them in. I think again, like what I'm saying is they're like nitpicking parts of the games and just throwing that in here, right? So
Right.
what you do is you take the core characters, right? Nate and Sully,
Yep.
and you just give them a totally original, totally new adventure in the vein of Indiana Jones, in the
Right.
vein
Right.
of
Right.
the
Right.
Mummy,
I get what you're
right?
saying.
You don't need to like draw all of these things from the game so I can just like look at the screen like, oh, I know that. Like
Right.
you can make this a whole new adventure.
Yep. No, for
That's
sure.
what they should have done, and they kind
Right.
of just Frankenstein a couple of them.
Right.
Um,
That's another really good point. That yeah, I think that that's something that plagues a lot of adaptations. Is that they sort of hold on to these story beats because they were in the source material, even though it doesn't necessarily work for a movie.
yeah, it doesn't work for a movie. Obviously, a game's gonna be so much longer. It can pace itself better,
And
obviously.
a lot of the action and the puzzle sequences you're actually in the middle of, and you're thinking through yourself, and so you're more engaged in it.
Yeah, you're more engaged, exactly. Whereas if you take inspiration from another movie, there's more like one-to-one things you can not even like copy, but like maybe take inspiration
Well,
from.
at that point, it's like it's beyond even taking inspiration from those movies. It's just like writing something yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Um, like at that rate, you know what I mean? But I get what you're saying. Like you just make it something new that make it Uncharted. You know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily have to be the plot of Uncharted X. You know what I mean?
yeah, which they kind of do.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think that that's probably true as well.
Okay, so earlier today I was watching Fury Road, and it kind of got me thinking on how Mad Max as like a movie series is very much like you can watch them in like whatever order you
Yep.
want,
Yep.
right?
It's
Because
nearly
it's
an anthology.
yeah, pretty much because there's only like one recurring character, and that's Max himself, right?
Yep. Yep.
They could kind of do something like that there, where there's like two, three like recurring characters, everything else is new.
Yep. Same thing with Indiana Jones. I mean, truthfully, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
honestly, yeah. There's like what Sala as Sala and Indiana Jones himself, maybe the only two recurring characters, but that
Yep.
that idea I think also works instead of trying to like set up like this whole like
Overarching.
multi-movie story. Like
Yep.
I don't need to see that, you
Yep.
know.
Yep. No, for sure. Especially with an adventure movie. Like The Mummy kind of does that. Um, but I also
I would say The Mummy has like enough recurring, like it's the entire family, right? That
yeah.
kind of comes back,
Yep.
which
I,
um
I don't know. I think that
that
that is
doesn't fall in the same category, I feel, as like Mad Max or Indiana
no,
Jones.
that's what I'm saying. I'm
Okay,
saying
okay.
that like The Mummy is an adventure movie series that is actually like a coherent series as opposed to being like a loose collection of stories.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but yeah, no, I agree that you know, you I think that them setting up the brother for the next movie didn't necessarily need to happen. I think that they could have held off on literally just that little post-credit scene. Um and maybe have this thing where it's like, Drake is kind of come to terms with the fact that, his brother's gone, and he's now just in it for the sake of adventure because that's what his brother would have wanted him to do. You know what I mean? Um and then in a sequel it's like, oh wow, you're alive, and
Yeah. In the game, that's again kind of the problem. The game has like a few years advantage on the movies, right? Because in the fourth game, Nate is completely out of the grave robbing thing, right? He's a civilian. He's living his life. He's married to Elena, and then the whole brother plot kind of like
comes
completely
out of
comes
left
out of
field.
yeah left field.
Right.
His brother needs help, and Nate has to go back into the game and help him, right?
Right.
Which I think is a really good like reason for him to get back in now. Like
Right.
now, is he gonna come back and Nate is still in the game? Like it doesn't like have that much impact, I guess. Like
Right. Comparatively.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
you want to know a fun fact?
Go ahead.
This movie is banned in the Philippines and Vietnam.
Really? Why in the Philippines?
It's because on Magellan's map, uh, it features a 9 dash line, and it
Okay.
depicts the South China Sea as being part of China's territory.
Oh,
Yeah. To,
that's it?
that map is like I don't know how real that map is, but that map is also supposed to be like hundreds of years old, so why do you care? It's I don't even think it's supposed to be like a current map.
But
Does it really
is that the
matter?
entirety of the reason? That's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely banned. I was like,
that's
that is so weird.
I mean, wow, yeah. I mean, not to get like overly political, but I mean like don't get me wrong. I understand that is a that is definitely a very important issue right now. But it's like, man, that's the reason. That's incredibly minor because I honestly didn't even think that it uh like that had to have been for only like a couple seconds.
Yep.
Like they don't even mention China once in the movie. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's wow. That's shocking.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Not as if they're missing out on much though, to be honest. You know what I mean? It's like
Actually, it could be the very opposite. If they didn't include the South China Sea as being part of China's territory, the movie could be banned in China, and then they lose a huge
mm,
market.
that
See
makes
that?
sense.
Yeah, this whole yeah. I'm like
Yeah.
movies that are like going for like the worldwide market. They gotta play it careful because countries won't like that. This and
Yep. Yep. And
it's
yeah,
annoying.
and I'm sure they don't mind missing out on the Filipino and Vietnamese markets if it means they can crack into China, even though I don't think it did.
I have no clue if it did actually.
I mean, we're not statisticians or anything like we don't have any numbers on hand, but I doubt that it really did super well in China because I didn't hear anything about it doing super well in China. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So guess that's Uncharted. That's that's all I got. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's an adaptation.
It's an adaptation. Again, I was actually pleasantly surprised, but to be fair, going into it, I thought it was going to be utter garbage. Um, but yeah, I mean, all things said and done, just simplify it a little bit. Not so much double crossing and backstabbing.
Yep.
Just kind of let it be its own thing. You don't necessarily need to copy the games in any respect, really. You know what I mean? You can just let it rock.
Yeah.
Um,
Other
and
than
then
I would
just
say the relationship. Just
yeah, keep
nail
the
that
character,
relationship between Sully and Nate.
keep the characters,
Yeah,
and then
keep the characters.
everything else go hog wild on a brand new adventure movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our take on it. That's our little bit of a directing after the movie's already out, and even though we have zero authority, we've never made a movie before. But tell us how you guys would have changed Uncharted in the comments because we're gonna be on YouTube. Um we also have vague plans to release this to potentially iTunes and Spotify. Not sure yet,
Yeah,
but
we might wait a few episodes. We'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. But but we're gonna be on YouTube for sure. Let us know. Well, so that's Uncharted. That's basically it. Hey, actually, Rithvik, did I ever tell you I you know how I went on like that the trip with your brother to Morocco?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I let him die. I didn't even try to save him. Like, I know I told you earlier that like there's nothing I could, nah, like I really could have easily saved his life. I just didn't. I didn't feel like it.
You know what I'm gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna storm out of this room for 10, maybe 12 minutes, and then I'll come back in. And then we gotta still record next week. So
Oh yeah. I mean, nothing to jeopardize the podcast, of
yeah,
course.
nothing. Yeah, it's fine.